I'm sure you've heard this before. We all have 24 hours in the day, right? We all do. Some people take those 24 hours, they do something great with it. Other people, not so much. And in the same way, there's another thing that we also have in common, and that is that we all think. We all have a mind. But that doesn't mean we use our mind in an equal way. Today we're going to talk about the topic of the mind, mentally tying in to our vision. So if you've been following this, we've been talking about diamond mind. Today we're going to talk about mentally. Next week, imagine a new, that's the N, and the last word letter is destiny. Mentally, imagine a new destiny. So we've been talking about how to prime our mind, how to focus on what we want, how to focus on what's important, and it all comes down to your thoughts, my thoughts, where we place focus. Last week I did something with a couple cards. I had 5 cards and I said focus on just one card. Got it? And you would focus on one of the cards, and then after that I would close the fan and then open it up again and your card would be gone. Well, the way I did it was I was able to switch the cards, but because you focus just on one card and not all of the cards, if you saw it, most likely you were fooled because you're not focusing on everything, because it's impossible. So today we're talking about using our mind mentally in such a way that we get what we want. Now, I'm not here to say that everything you think about you're going to get. Over the years, I have thought about a lot of things. I've journaled. A lot of things have come true. Not everything, but I do have to believe that if I wasn't focused and I didn't write these things down, I probably would not be living the life that I'm living now. So here's something I want you to think about at the top of this call. Your life right now, now here it is, we're in April of 2023. Your life right now is a reflection of your thoughts yesterday, last month, last year, and probably 4 or 5 years ago. So where you are now, or where I am now, is pretty much where I thought I would be. So when we're talking about mind and mentally crafting a vision, I do believe that the outside world is a reflection of our inside world. How we see ourselves, our vision, our blueprint. If you want to use the word blueprint, each of us has a blueprint, or we have a worldview of how we think things should be. Last week I was up in Massachusetts, in Concord. I went to Walden Pond, walked around it. I was thinking to myself, I probably was here when I was younger with my parents. It's been a long time. But it was there that people were able to transcend reality using their thoughts and using the images in their mind. And that's what I'm talking about. I mean, if you look around your room right now, wherever you are, everything that you have in your room was once a mental concept. If you're watching me, there's a sign over my head. That sign is an image of what I thought about last year. I spoke to a graphic designer. I said, here's my logo. See if you can put something together. I took my thoughts, I kind of gave it to this person. His name is Matthew, and he came up with that logo and that sign. That sign is there because I had the image in my mind. It's not rocket science, it's pretty easy. Someone sits down, they have an idea for a book, they sit down and they write a book over 3-6 months, maybe a year, and then the book becomes a reality. The car that you drive, the place that you're sitting right now, the podcast that I'm on right now, all of these things once began in a person's mind. And then they brought it out in reality. Now, we know that's true about the light bulb. We know that's true about building a house. It can also be true about things like relationships or money or health. All of these things begin mentally first. And it's very important that we focus our energy, our mental power on what we want, not what we don't want. I don't know if you've experienced this, and hopefully it's not you, but sometimes you ask people, so what do you want out of this month? Or what do you want out of this year, you know? And people have a way of thinking spirally downward, like, oh, my life is terrible. I don't think it's going to get any better. And not only are they saying these things, they're also thinking these things, which means that they're having images in their mind influence their words, and then it becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy. Now, I'm not saying that every image you have and every word that you speak is going to come true. I'm not saying that, but I do believe the images that we have in our mind and the words that we speak mentally create the world that we live in. One of the ways I came to realize this is that not everybody experiences reality the same way. You can have two people, watching a movie or reading a book or experiencing something like a car accident, and one person sees it totally different. I mean, think of politics. Think of things that have gone on in the last couple years in America. People are divided. Why? Because they see things differently. They see it from this angle or they see it from that angle. So what's the difference? It's how we perceive things. It's our values. It's our judgment. What's the difference between the guy that's going to McDonald's every day making $15 an hour and the person that owns 10 McDonald's? What's the difference? These are things that I asked myself many years ago. What's the difference from a guy that goes in or a woman that goes in and clocks in at a McDonald's versus a person that owns a franchise or many? It all comes down to how they think and construct reality. Now, it sounds like magic, and it really isn't, but in reality, we create our reality by our thoughts. I remember when I was, probably 7 or 8 years old. I was sitting in the living room with my mom and we were watching some commercials. I think it was The Exorcist that came on. My mom would roll her eyes. And I'd say, Mom, what's going on? And she'd say, be careful what you focus on. Be careful what you expose your mind to. And I'm like, yeah, right, Mom, these are just commercials. And I remember arguing with her. And she would say to me, Greg, be careful how you program your mind, because if you don't program it, someone else is going to program it for you. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about programming your mind for more of what you want, not what you don't want. And what I've found out is that most of my thinking comes from my childhood, the first 8 or 9 or 10 years of my life. Views about money, views about relationships, views about the world. A lot of this is already ingrained as a small child, and then we take this vision or we take this programming out in the world and it becomes a reality. I mean, have you ever met someone that maybe their dad left them when they were kids or their mom left them when they were kids, and then they get into relationships as adults and they kind of connect to people that have a tendency to abandon them or to leave them, or the person that marries an alcoholic and their father was an alcoholic, their dad was an alcoholic, their brother was, and then they, coincidentally they find somebody that they relate to that is their partner in life, and oh my goodness, it's a surprise, they too are an alcoholic. So this is what I'm talking about, programming the mind. There's a story that Jim Rohn used to tell, and I think I heard it through Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins was talking to Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn said, be careful and guard your coffee. And Jim Rohn was explaining what he was meaning to Tony. And he said, listen, Tony, if you had a cup of coffee and your friend came by, your best friend, and put just a tiny little drop of poison in your coffee, what would be the consequences of that? That would be pretty bad. And what if, your enemy came by and just put sugar in there? that wouldn't be a big problem. But if your best friend came by and was able to put poison in your coffee, that would have dire consequences. And the illustration was not necessarily about how you like your coffee, light or black or sugar or not sugar. It was about poisoning your mind. I can hear my mom telling me this, the programming that you listen to, the music that you listen to, the things that you read, the television programs that you expose yourself. All of these things are influencing your worldview. All of these things are influencing your mentality. And most of all, here's a big one, and my mom used to say this to me as well: be careful who you surround yourself with. Because who you surround yourself with is a direct relationship with who you are. So I had this conversation with a friend of mine last week in Massachusetts. If you surround yourself with very wealthy people, it's probably a good indication of your wealth. If you surround yourself with people that are struggling, people who are poor, people that can't make ends meet, it's probably a great indication of who you are. Because birds of a feather flock together. You've heard that before. I know it sounds judgmental, and I remember hearing it for the first time from my mom back in the 70s. But what happens is we select people who confirm where we are mentally and possibly even emotionally. So be careful who you pick as far as your friends. Now your relatives, you can't handle your relatives as far as picking them, right? You just have them. But as far as your friends or your colleagues, that's really something that's really important. So talking about my family or talking about family, I have another story. Last week I was at a funeral and someone came up to me and they said, "So I hear you're leaving for Ireland." I said, "Yes, I'm leaving for Ireland soon." And these are the words that came out of the person's mouth. I don't even remember who it was. They said, "Boy, you're lucky. You're lucky. Wow, you're so lucky." In the last 10, 20 years, probably 15 years most likely, I've traveled all around the world, been all over Europe, have seen a lot of places that I want to see. Haven't seen Egypt yet, but it's on my list. And it has nothing to do with luck. I don't really think it has anything to do with luck. Many, many years ago, I pulled out a piece of paper in my journal and I wrote down that I wanted to go to Fiji, I wanted to go to Israel, wanted to go to Rome, Greece, Ireland, 15 places. And at the time I didn't have the money, didn't have the time off, didn't have the ability to do it. But nevertheless, I just wrote down in my journal, these are things that I want to accomplish in my life as far as travel. And throughout the years, I was able to accomplish most of it. I got a job down in New York, and I was working at a college, and I was director of alumni relations. And through the process of that, my first trip, we took about 50 people to Israel. The next year, we took 50 people to Italy. Then after that, I started my own retreat business, where I take people to different locations. Number one, because I want to see them, and number two, because I really believe if you can take a person outside of their element, take them on retreat, they start seeing things differently, they start acting differently, they start thinking differently because they are in a new environment. So, all of that to say this, I don't know how much luck is involved, but I do know that having a thought and getting really clear and writing it down is really, truly important. If you get in your car and you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to go west, no, I'm going to go east, no, I'm going to go west, no, I'm going to go east, no, I'm going to go... There's no end to that. You get in your car, you drive a specific place. You know exactly where you're going to go. And I think if life is important, if your life is important, like I think my life is, I think it's important to put things down on paper. So, going out to Ireland soon, can't wait, looking forward to the experience, and most of all, being with people who want to grow and also want to expand their consciousness as well. I'm saying all this just to challenge you. Be careful what you think about, because what you think about, you may bring about. Now, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But if it was true, wouldn't it make more sense to have positive thoughts rather than negative thoughts. And one way to check in on that is check in to see who the circle of your influence is. Because most likely they are influencing you and you are influencing them. So let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial. It's 30 seconds. We'll be back. I'll take a sip of water and we'll be right back.
You've been listening to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show, brought to you by motivational speaker Greg Dwyer on buildingfortunesradio.com. Do you wish you could sharpen your focus on what matters most to you and achieve more? Then you owe it to yourself to read Greg's ebook at gregdwyerebook.com. That's www.gregdwyerebook.com. Download it today and give it away. As always, we want to thank you for listening to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio with motivational speaker Greg Dwyer. Now back to our show. Take it away, Greg.
Okay, we are back. We're talking about the M in Diamond Mind. And the M has to do with your mind or mentally constructing what you want to create in your life. Now, whether you're in business for yourself, whether you work for someone else, or whether you just want to improve your personal life, I have a gift for you, and it doesn't require anything other than to go to a website. At this point, you don't have to put even in your email, which is kind of interesting, kind of nice. I've opened it up, so it's free. There's no catch. You don't even have to add your email. All you have to do is go to gregdwyerebook.com. So it's G-R-E-G, my first name, Dwyer, D-W-Y-E-R, ebook.com. The minute you type in your URL on your website, gregdwyerebook.com, hit the button, there's the ebook. You don't have to opt in, you don't have to put an email, I don't need to know your telephone number, your name, I don't have to know anything. It is a free gift. All I ask is if you read it and you like it, you can pass it on. You can send it to anybody you want. It has to do with using the power of your mind from a magician's point of view. I started as a magician in the 70s. I know exactly how magicians make people focus and unfocus and distract them. So that's the reason why I put together the ebook. So I ask you to download it, get it, read it, and also share it. Share it with Facebook, social media, or send it in an email. I think it'll help, and I think it will help other people. That's gregdwyerebook.com. So years ago, I used to work for a seminar company. The guy's name is Brian Clemmer. He passed away a few years ago, but I was able to work with him and get to know him. A great guy, lived out in California. And he did an exercise, which I've seen other places. I'm sure maybe you've heard of it, maybe you've seen it. But it had to do with vision. And what Brian would have people do in his workshop is he would have them stand up and put their feet together. You don't have to do this, but just listen to how it works. And then they would face him, and then they would point their finger out like this. So they'd be standing up, their feet would be together, they'd be pointing like this, and then he would say, without moving your legs or your feet, by moving your feet, keep your feet planted facing forward. I want you to move your arm as far back as you can. Your finger, your arm pointing. So people would face forward, they point towards him, and he'd say, on the count of 3, I want you to spin around, keep your feet facing forward, just turn your body, don't hurt yourself, right? And then see how far you can go. And he would do that. Then he would bring them back and say, now I want you to do this. I want you to close your eyes. He'd say, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine that you're turning. You're turning the same way, but this time do it in your mind. Don't do it actually, just do it in your mind. So in your mind, close your eyes, point your finger, and then imagine that you're going around, but you're going further than you did before without hurting yourself, right? And I've seen him do this many times. I've seen, I think Tony Robbins and a few other people do this as well. So it's a metaphor. It's kind of a training thing. So they would open their eyes, and after they opened their eyes, he'd say, now what I want you to do is I just want you to go right around. And people would go further. He goes, now what's the difference? What's the difference? The difference is you used your imagination. The difference is you mentally constructed going further in your mind first, using your imagination. Now, next time we're going to talk about imagination. We're going to get into a new destiny and talk about that. But right now I'm focusing mentally on constructing your vision for reality in your brain. And so I went further, my arm went back further, and most of the people in the room did the same thing. They were able to accomplish more distance. They have done studies, athletes playing basketball, running, actors, comedians, people who have to perform or do something. They would perform it first in their mind, and they would rehearse it in their mind before they did it. And they were able to achieve a lot more. So we know that this isn't just hocus pocus. We know that this isn't just, shenanigans. This actually works. People who believe, oh, I'm never going to be able to do it. They're right. Because that's what they're thinking. That's their mental construct. So mentally focusing in on what you want is really important. Not necessarily what you don't want, what you do want. That's the key. So here's another experiment you can try. If it's true, now I'm not saying it is true, but let's say it is true, that where you are today, which is April 2023, is connected to where you were in your thoughts 5 years ago, right? If that's true, not saying it is, but maybe it is true, then is it possible to create a better future now in a very magical way? So let me explain. I heard this from Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you've ever listened to Jordan Peterson. He talks about your current self, and he talks about the future self. Now, I'm sure he's not the only one that has ever talked about the future self, right? So I'm in my 60s, right? So I'm projecting 10 years out till I'm 70. So when I think of myself 10 years from now, that's my future self. That's 70-year-old Greg Dwyer, right? Here I am today. Is it possible, I almost said, is it possible to time travel? But that's a little bit dramatic. But that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about time travel. Is it possible to get a vision in your mind, my mind, of our future self? So, like, for instance, maybe you're concerned about your health when you get older. So you see ice cream cake and you see an avocado and you think, I'm going to eat the avocado because my future self is going to thank me later. And of course, it's going to have to be later because it's your future self. All right. So maybe money. Think about this. All right. I can go to the concert, go to the show, or my future self will thank me for investing in real estate or investing in the stock market or taking the money and putting it under my bed or burying it in the backyard. All right. So you get the idea? The idea is your current self is where you are right now in time, wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening. I don't know. For me, it's the 16th of April, 2023. Maybe you're listening from the future. That'll be scary. Okay, it could be. Maybe you're listening from the past. I don't know how that would work, but anything's possible, especially with string theory, right? All right. Future self, current self. Now, why do I mention this? Because is it possible that you could create a better future for yourself in the future by communicating to your present self from your future self? I almost want to say that again, but I don't think I would get it right the second time. Here's what I mean. Really simple. 2033 is in the future, because right now it's 2023. So 2033 is in the future. It hasn't happened yet, right? What if you were to sit down today, tonight, this afternoon, or tomorrow, or last week? No, not last week. But you were to sit down and write yourself a letter from the future. Follow me. In other words, you're mentally constructing 10 years from now. Now, if 10 years bothers you, let's go with 5. 5 is easy, right? 2023, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 2028, all right? Or you want to do 2029 or 2030, whatever you want to do. You would date it, future, right? And then you would sit down and you would really get in a quiet place, maybe go on a afternoon retreat or get somewhere, you know, where you're not going to get disrupted by social media, the phone ringing or anything else. And all you do is mentally tap in to the vision of your future and just do a little time travel. That's all. Just a little, not a lot, just a little bit of time travel. And you're writing yourself to your present day. So today is Sunday. So 2033, it's April. I'm a little older. I'm a little wiser, a lot wiser, a lot wiser. And the things that I'm learning, or the things that I have learned, past tense, because it's the future, I'm a little confused, but you know, follow me. I write the letter to my present self. And then I seal it up and I mail it to myself. I mail it to myself. Put a stamp on the outside, return address, drop it in the mail. I've actually done this, so I know it works. It's kind of spooky, but it works. And then you go to the mailbox the next day, or a day later, and the mail comes to you, and there's your letter from your future self. But you don't open it. And you take that letter, let's say it's 10 years from now, you take that letter and you put it where you can see it every single day. Every single day you can see it. Maybe it's on the mirror in your bedroom or mirror in your bathroom, wherever it is. You can see it. It's there. And you don't open it until 2033. You know, something could say something like this: Dear Greg, thanks for losing the weight. We made it to 2033. Thanks for putting all that money in the bank. We never have to work ever again. Thanks for picking up a couple pieces of real estate. Whatever you want, whatever you think's important to you, be creative. Imagine mentally tapping into your future self and doing a little bit of time travel, and write yourself a letter. Why not? Why not? That letter, if you're looking at it every day, is going to impact your decisions. Who you spend time with, what you do, what you watch, what you read. It's going to be there, believe it or not. And so when you have choices, your choices are going to be to eat the cheesecake, or have some broccoli, or spend money stupidly, is that even a word? Or invest it. That letter is going to be there, and your future self is going to be like, you may want to reconsider that relationship. You may want to reconsider that job, or that trip, or that person, or even that dress, because you look fat in that dress. No, I'm just kidding. But whatever the decisions are, your future self is going to impact you mentally for the better. I mean, you don't have to listen to me. Listen to your future self. You don't have to listen to your friends. Listen to your future self. It's one of the great experiments that you can do using your mind. And also, I would encourage you to get GregDwyerEbook.com. We'll talk to you next time. It looks like we're out of time. See you then.
You've been listening to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show, brought to you by motivational speaker Greg Dwyer on buildingfortunesradio.com. Check out Greg at GregDwyer.com. Be sure to download his ebook at GregDwyerEbook.com to stay focused on what matters most to you. That's www.GregDwyerEbook.com. We want to thank you for listening. Now go make a difference